Welcome to our channel. Today we're diving into a critical and sobering topic, the impact of nuclear bomb attacks. It's easy to dismiss these events as things of the past, relegated to history books and grainy newsreel footage. But the truth is, the threat of nuclear war is as real today as it ever was. From the physical destruction of cities to the long-term health effects on populations, the consequences of nuclear detonations are staggering. But the impact goes far beyond the immediate devastation. We're talking about global politics, environmental catastrophes, and the very fabric of human society being irrevocably altered. So buckle up because we're about to embark on a journey through the far-reaching consequences of nuclear weapons. It's a heavy topic, but one that deserves our undivided attention. Understanding the full scope of the nuclear threat is the first step in ensuring it never becomes a reality. Imagine a weapon so powerful, so efficient at unleashing energy, that it can vaporize buildings in a heartbeat. That's the terrifying reality of a nuclear explosion. The initial blast wave, traveling faster than the speed of sound, creates a shockwave that levels everything in its path. We're not just talking about flimsy structures here. We're talking about reinforced concrete buildings, bridges, entire city blocks reduced to rubble in an instant. The heat generated by the explosion is equally unimaginable, reaching temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun. Everything within a certain radius simply vanishes, incinerated before it even has time to ignite. And then there's the radiation. Invisible, insidious, and utterly deadly. It permeates the air, the ground, even the very dust particles that dance in the explosion's aftermath. This invisible killer doesn't discriminate. It seeps into everything, poisoning the environment and condemning those who survive the initial blast to a slow, agonizing demise. The physical destruction caused by a nuclear bomb is difficult to comprehend. It's a scene of utter devastation, a wasteland where a bustling city once stood. But the true horror lies not just in the immediate aftermath, but in the long-lasting consequences that continue to haunt the land and its people for generations to come. The immediate aftermath of a nuclear explosion is a scene of unimaginable carnage. The sheer number of casualties is overwhelming. Hundreds of thousands, perhaps even millions of lives extinguished in a single horrifying moment. Those closest to the blast are vaporized instantly, their bodies turn to ash. Those further out face a different kind of horror. Third-degree burns cover their exposed skin, the searing heat melting flesh from bone. The lucky ones die quickly. Others linger, succumbing to their injuries in the hours and days that follow. The medical infrastructure, even in the most prepared nations, is ill-equipped to handle a disaster of this magnitude. Hospitals are overwhelmed, their resources stretched thin as they struggle to treat the endless stream of injured. Doctors and nurses forced to make impossible choices are left traumatized by the sheer scale of suffering they witness. But the human cost of a nuclear attack extends far beyond the initial casualties. The psychological trauma inflicted on survivors, the loss of loved ones, the displacement of entire populations, these are wounds that may never fully heal. The detonation of a nuclear bomb doesn't just scar the Earth, it poisons it. The explosion releases a deadly cocktail of radioactive isotopes into the environment, contaminating everything they touch. This radioactive fallout spreads far and wide, carried by wind currents to rain down on unsuspecting populations hundreds, even thousands of miles away. The soil itself becomes a silent killer, absorbing radioactive particles that contaminate crops and water sources. Rivers and lakes, once teeming with life, turn into toxic soups. The food chain is disrupted as animals ingest contaminated plants and water, passing the radiation up to humans at the top of the food chain. The long-term environmental consequences are equally dire. Radioactive materials have a long half-life, meaning they remain dangerous for years, decades, even centuries after the initial explosion. This invisible threat lingers in the environment, a constant reminder of the catastrophic event that forever changed the landscape. The detonation of a nuclear bomb isn't just an attack on a city or a nation, it's an attack on the planet itself. And like all wounds inflicted on the Earth, the scars of nuclear war take generations to heal. Chapter 4. The Unseen Suffering, Generational Health Consequences. The true horror of a nuclear attack unfolds slowly, insidiously, in the months, years, and even decades that follow the explosion. This is the era of the unseen suffering, as the invisible hand of radiation tightens its grip on survivors. Radiation exposure increases the risk of cancer dramatically. Leukemia, thyroid cancer, breast cancer, lung cancer. These are just a few of the deadly diseases that become tragically common in the wake of a nuclear detonation. Children are particularly vulnerable, their developing bodies more susceptible to the damaging effects of radiation. Birth defects become tragically commonplace. Babies are born with deformities, intellectual disabilities, and compromised immune systems, their lives forever altered by the invisible enemy that ravaged their parents' DNA. The genetic legacy of a nuclear attack can stretch across generations, a haunting reminder of the catastrophic event that continues to cast a long shadow. The health effects of radiation are not just physical, they are psychological as well. Survivors grapple with the knowledge that their bodies have been irrevocably changed, that they are living on borrowed time. Chapter 5, From Rubble to Ruin, the Socioeconomic Earthquake. The detonation of a nuclear bomb doesn't just obliterate physical structures, it shatters economies and topples social order. In the aftermath of such a catastrophe, entire industries grind to a halt. Factories lie in ruins, their workers dead or displaced. Supply chains crumble, leaving shelves empty and basic necessities in short supply. The financial markets, already reeling from the shock of the event, plunge into chaos. Currencies become worthless overnight. Governments struggle to maintain order, their resources stretched thin by the overwhelming need for disaster relief. The social fabric, already frayed by fear and uncertainty, begins to unravel. Trust erodes as people, desperate for survival, turn on each other. Crime rates soar, and the rule of law becomes a distant memory. The very foundations of civilization, built over centuries, begin to crumble under the weight of a single catastrophic event. The socio-economic impact of a nuclear attack is a slow-motion train wreck, a cascade of failures that ripple outward from ground zero, leaving lasting scars on the global community. Chapter 6, Scars That Don't Heal, the Mental and Emotional Fallout. The psychological and emotional toll of a nuclear attack is perhaps the most insidious and long-lasting consequence of all. Survivors are haunted by the horrors they witnessed, the searing images of death and destruction forever imprinted on their minds. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, becomes a widespread epidemic, as survivors struggle with flashbacks, nightmares, and crippling anxiety. The constant fear of another attack, the knowledge that the world as they knew it is gone forever, weighs heavily on their minds. Depression, anxiety, and a pervasive sense of hopelessness become commonplace. The social fabric, already strained, is further weakened by the psychological trauma that permeates every aspect of life. The loss of loved ones, the destruction of homes and communities, the uncertainty of the future. These are burdens that can crush even the strongest of spirits. The mental and emotional scars of a nuclear attack run deep, leaving survivors grappling with invisible wounds that may never fully heal. The mental health crisis that follows a nuclear detonation is a silent epidemic, a wave of suffering that spreads far beyond the blast zone, impacting families, communities, and entire generations. The existence of nuclear weapons has created a dangerous and unstable world order. The ability of a single nation to inflict unimaginable destruction on another has fundamentally changed the nature of international relations. The Cold War, a decades-long standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union, was a testament to the terrifying potential of nuclear war. The threat of mutually assured destruction, or MAD, became a grim reality, a high-stakes game of chicken where one wrong move could have had apocalyptic consequences. Even today, with the Cold War a fading memory, the threat of nuclear proliferation remains a serious concern. Rogue states and terrorist organizations seeking to acquire these devastating weapons pose a significant threat to global security. The possibility of a nuclear device falling into the wrong hands is a chilling reminder of the fragility of peace in the 21st century. The international community faces the daunting task of preventing nuclear proliferation while also working towards the eventual elimination of these weapons of mass destruction. The stakes are incredibly high, for the future of humanity may very well depend on our ability to prevent a nuclear catastrophe. In the aftermath of a nuclear attack, the task of responding to the disaster and rebuilding what was lost is a monumental undertaking. The scale of destruction is unlike anything the world has ever seen, and the challenges are immense. The immediate priority is to provide medical care to the injured, but with hospitals overwhelmed and resources scarce, this is a daunting task. Search and rescue efforts are hampered by the widespread devastation and the dangers of radiation exposure. The task of identifying the dead and notifying their families is a heartbreaking and logistically complex process. As the immediate crisis subsides, the focus shifts to the long and arduous process of rebuilding. Decontaminating the affected area, clearing rubble, and constructing new infrastructure are all massive undertakings. The economic cost of recovery is staggering, and the psychological toll on survivors and relief workers is immeasurable. The road to recovery is long and uncertain, but the resilience of the human spirit is a powerful force. With time, determination, and the support of the international community, it is possible to rebuild from the ashes of a nuclear disaster. However, the scars of such an event run deep, and the world will never be the same. While humans are understandably the primary focus in the aftermath of a nuclear explosion, we can't forget the devastating impact on the natural world. Ecosystems, delicately balanced over millennia, are thrown into chaos by the sudden influx of radiation. Plants wither and die, their leaves turning brown and brittle under the invisible assault. Animals exposed to high levels of radiation suffer a range of debilitating conditions. Cancer rates skyrocket, birth defects become commonplace, and populations dwindle as the ecosystem struggles to recover. The impact on biodiversity is profound. Some species, unable to adapt to the irradiated environment, face extinction. Others undergo rapid mutations, their genetic codes scrambled by the powerful forces unleashed by the bomb. The long-term ecological consequences of a nuclear attack are difficult to predict, but the potential for widespread ecosystem collapse is very real. The detonation of a nuclear bomb is not just an attack on humanity, it's an attack on the web of life itself. And the consequences for the natural world could be just as devastating as those for our own species. The development and use of nuclear weapons raise profound ethical and legal questions that continue to be debated to this day. Is it ever morally justifiable to use a weapon that can inflict such indiscriminate death and destruction? What are the legal ramifications of using nuclear weapons, and how do we hold nations accountable for the long-term consequences of their actions? The Geneva Conventions, a set of international treaties that establish standards for humanitarian treatment in war, prohibit the use of weapons that cause unnecessary suffering. However, the unique destructive power of nuclear weapons makes it difficult to reconcile their use with these principles. The International Court of Justice has issued an advisory opinion stating that the use of nuclear weapons would generally be contrary to international law, but the court also acknowledged that there might be exceptional circumstances where their use could be legal. The debate over the legality and morality of nuclear weapons is complex and multifaceted, but one thing is clear: the potential consequences of their use are so catastrophic that we must do everything in our power to prevent their proliferation and ensure they are never used again. Thank you for watching. We've covered a lot of difficult ground in this video, from the immediate devastation of a nuclear explosion to the long-term consequences for human health, the environment, and global security. It's a heavy topic, but one that deserves our attention. The threat of nuclear war may seem like a distant relic of the Cold War, but the reality is that the danger is as real today as it ever was. The proliferation of nuclear weapons to more countries, the rise of non-state actors, and the potential for accidents or miscalculations all contribute to a volatile and uncertain global landscape. If you found this video informative, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth explorations of important topics. Stay safe and stay informed.